Hey folks, it's Patriot Nurse. Thanks for joining me today in this video. What came to mind to share with you was a weak good creating a strong evil. And what we've seen over our college campuses in the United States and indeed the West over the past few weeks telegraphs to the enemies of the Enlightenment, to the enemies of freedom and personal liberties, that it's a ripe picking time for us. And so what got my wheels thinking about this today was really looking at the caliber of individuals in decline in the United States and in the West. We have become weak, and our enemies understand this very well, particularly when it comes to the role of men and how men in our culture are looked at and denigrated and definitely not celebrated for traditional masculinity in the ways that they were in World War I and World War II. This has a very real impact on the way that we are perceived internationally. While our quote-unquote men and the culture of masculinity or lack thereof that's being celebrated and lauded as normative in our culture right now, the normal for men is to wear women's clothes and to not work and to expect women to pay for things. Well, that's the norm in our culture. Other cultures with traditional masculinity are rising. So while we can't even compete as far as recruiting for our armed forces anymore, and even if they could compete for recruiting, there are not enough fit men out there who are capable of performing services in the military. When you look at this compared to, for instance, the rising Islamic world and the fundamentalist jihadist Wahhabist mentality that is recruiting, I won't call them men, but is recruiting males in their jihadist search, they're doing a great job with that. And not only that, they are recruiting males who are now battle hardened, coming back from all of these wars they fought in, which we either instigated or which we facilitated in one way, shape, or form. So what this means is, while over the past 20 years our men have been getting softer, theirs have been getting more hardened. And not only that, but they've been getting the technology that we created to help facilitate the spread of their death cult ideology. When we see on the news the next generation of radicalized Marxists and radicalized white guilted Islamo-fascists, which is like the weirdest combination possible to me, to think that like the white guilted, self-loathing, cat box defecating men in our culture now, apparently male, it's hate speech now. It's hate speech for me to use biology. So like, I don't know whatever like the non-triggering verbiage is, but you get to a point where like, I'm tired of the opposition controlling the language. I'm just gonna say what I'm gonna say. Not that I would care what they have to say anyway, but you know, YouTube censors and stuff. You get to the point, you know, when you're looking at the news and you're seeing through the eyes of our enemy what they must be seeing. They're like, these people are ripe for the pickings. And there was a skit that has been making its way around, essentially lampooning the Columbia college campus students and how they must really be thinking about things compared to their BFF, their bestie freedom fighters over there in Gaza. It's unreal. We have become weak because we didn't prize good with enough teeth. And what does that mean to have a weak good creating a strong evil? Evil is constantly strengthening unless it's kept at bay. And not even kept at bay unless it is regularly obliterated. And these are not polite terms, but unless evil is regularly wiped out, subjugated, destroyed, and, how shall we say, kindly, evaporated. Unless that happens to evil regularly, good has no chance of thriving. And what we've seen is our complacency in the West. Our whole mentality of live and let live is being used against us now. It's being used by our enemies to destroy us from within. And now they're even talking about importing more terrorist sympathizers in from Gaza to further expiate the white guilted conscience that we're supposed to have here in the US. It is lunacy what we're seeing. And because of this weak good, we now have an evil that is strengthening. And ultimately, nature abhors a vacuum. Strength is what is respected and feared. And at the point we're at right now, we are neither respected nor feared internationally. Our weakness has created a degradation of our good to where we are not good anymore. Can we honestly say, I want you to ask yourself a question. Leave me a comment below. Can we honestly say that the United States exports good internationally now? What do we export? I'm asking, what do we export now? Do we export products that work? Do we export morality in our media? Do we export a currency that's fundamentally solvent? No. So our weakness has created a degradation of our good. And by having a lack of good, the evil in the world is strengthening. And contrary to what the white paper writers and Council on Foreign Relations, and some of these other, like Bilderberg groups and stuff, what these people like to believe, inherently a strong United States is not a force for good in the world. We are only a force for good when we are allegiant to our principles and use our strength to support that. And that doesn't come through the CIA tearing down governments and starting coups internationally. That is not a strong good. A strong good is that we here locally, at home, are allegiant to our principles. And it starts at home, of course. It starts in our homes, our communities, our churches, synagogues, places of worship. But when those places are now no longer allegiant to the scriptures and they have turned their backs upon what is good, how in the world, if the foundations be crumbled, what can the righteous do? How in the world is this going to have a positive outcome? And ironically enough, I see a lot of people speaking about the seemingly inevitable destiny of the United States to always exist in perpetuity, and that, we're a force for good in the world, so God has to bless us. That's not the case. The issue is not God bless America. It's America bless God. Until we bless the Lord, until we serve the Lord, and until we're willing to use our teeth to stand up for things, whether it's here at home and silencing these little snotty-nosed brats on campuses who have never had consequence in their life and who've never had the belt on the buttock. Whenever that gets strong, goodness gets weak. And because we have deluded ourselves into doing the whole seeker-friendly messages, that's where we're at right now. Something that came to my mind as I was thinking about sharing this message with you and filming this video is the Siege of Lachish, or Lachish. And this is actually a mural that is depicted now in the British Museum. And it tells of the judgment that Israel faced for turning its back upon God. And what happened to their cities. And what happened to the people. It's pretty brutal. Not something definitely for sensitive ears online. So I'll leave it to you to do your research on what the Siege of Lachish, or Lachish, Lachish, what the Siege of Lachish is depicted as. But this is what happens to a nation that's turned its back on its God, and that has allowed strength to become weakness, and has allowed good to waste away and to atrophy. And just like any muscle, if you don't use it, you lose it. Thankfully, I think people are standing up. You see it now with the frat boys standing on various college campuses, disallowing the American flag from being taken down and a Palestinian terrorist flag being put up in its place. When we see that people are taking a stand, that courage is contagious just as much as cowardice is. And until we embrace that courage, and until our good becomes strong again, that evil would continue to strengthen. But evil has an inherent weakness about it, that evil knows, the true source of evil knows its time is coming, and knows that there is a check on the power. But that power will not get checked unless we stand up. And that could be in some small thing, whether it's you refuse to use freaking pronouns somewhere on an application form, or you actually address a man and a woman as sir or man. Whatever it is, to be bold and courageous in the good, that's how we take it back. And that's how we refuse to let the evil become strong. Until we are strong in our individual choices each day, and this is as much for me as for anybody else, until we are strong in those choices, we will never regain security in this country. We will never have safety again. And we're going to continue to see the college campus riots spread, because the ideology is toxic, and it has come to us at a time where there is a great sifting happening. And we ultimately, just like the children of Israel, when Moses came down from the mountain with the tablets and then saw the children of Israel do it, what were they doing? They were with the golden calf the first time. Out of all the miracles and signs that they had seen, funny because we're just coming out of Passover and I'm thinking about this. Out of all the miracles and signs that they had seen, they had turned their back so quickly on their God and embraced the idols of Egypt. And in doing so, a lot of people paid for it. They paid for it and they died, ultimately. Very nasty deaths, I might add, if you read the passage. And there was a line in the sand where Moses said, "Who is on the Lord's side? Come over here." And there's going to be a time similar to that for us in the near future. Who's on the side of the Lord? This is where the line is. So where is your line? I'm asking. Where is your line? What are you willing to accept? And what is that line in the sand for you? And are you going to have courage? I'm asking myself this too. Will we have courage in the day of our trial? What is that line in the sand for you? How are we going to be strong in our good so the weakness doesn't devour us from within and create an evil that avalanches and eats us alive? Hope the video was helpful for y'all today. If you did enjoy it, I hope you'll subscribe to me here on YouTube, Patriot Nurse. You can also stay with me and support me on Patreon, subscribe, Star Cryptocurrency, and PayPal. I got links below. In times like this, training is important. Preparedness is important. Our enemies are watching this. They're watching this lunacy on college campuses. And they're watching the fecklessness of the American administration, the Biden administration, in foreign policy, seeing exactly what's going on. Seeing how Antony Blinken going over to Israel, telling them to parley with terrorists and effectively abandon hostages in order to get a permanent ceasefire. The United States is encouraging terrorists to overthrow democratically elected powers in the world. But that's what we've been doing for the past 7 years. So in times like this, preparedness is important. People think that destruction of nations is linear. It is, but it has a flashpoint. It's linear until it isn't, and then it becomes exponential. And at that flashpoint, are we going to be ready? Are we going to be able to withstand what's coming? And not only that, are we going to be able to hold our heads high courageously in the day of our trial and be a blessing to people in the midst of it? We only do that if we're prepared. We can only do that if we got the beans, bullets, and band-aids checked off. And also your faith, right? Because the thing is, like the beans, bullets, and band-aids we talk about on this channel, this isn't so we can sit on our stockpile and watch the world burn around us. This is so that we can be more effective as tools and as ministering agents of God's mercy, and also in times of hardship to be able to be more self-sufficient, and also to be able to make decisions in line with our conscience and not be slaves subjugated to whatever whims of prevailing ideology or power structure that may be. If you can meet your own basic needs, whether in food and self-defense or in medicine, then you're a free man or a free woman. Notice the binary usage of the language. You are a free man and a free woman if you can meet your needs by yourself without respect to a government, without coming hat in hand to them, having to capitulate to their ideology in order to get bread. That's why we do beans, bullets, and band-aids. Not because it's fun to buy stuff, not because it's fun to sit on a stockpile and look at how great we are compared to everywhere else. No, we do this because it matters, because our choices matter, because the things that we do now affect our children, affect our families, affect our grandchildren into the future. We have to give them a legacy of strength if we don't want to be subjects of a foreign power and an ideology that would destroy us. Part of why I've done what I've done over the past decade of my life is to equip people and give them opportunities to learn from a medical standpoint how to be prepared. And also I have online courses for people to take advantage of as well and train. There's 4 and 7 hour courses I have available. You can find those at thepatriotnurse.com. I got a short intro to preparedness. That's the 4-hour course, Foundations of Medical Prep. And also an herbal course that's approximately 7 hours that gets you used to working within an herbal world with what's behind you effectively when there is no supply line or when those are disrupted. And that knowledge is priceless because wherever you go in the world, you can work with what's in front of you to take care of your families. Hope the video was helpful for y'all. Have a blessed week. For now, it's Patriot Nurse signing off, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.